So I keep trying to shoot this video and things keep coming up. So I'm gonna try it one more time. I'll probably just try to shoot the audio with you guys, and then I'll dub in some other stuff. So if the audio sounds funny, it's because I'm driving my truck. Yes, and it's a big, diesely, stinky thing. The best kind of truck. So take that, Greta Gumball. And I need to get four-wheel drive to get out of the driveway. I'm slipping. Stop. Alright. Switch. Electronics. Now we roll forward. Okay. So guys, last week a viewer of the channel commented, JP, no, not JP, it was JXB, so J Xbox, commented and requested some suggestions for raising chickens in the winter time. So I'm gonna kind of just try to shoot from the top of my head, and for the most part, ooh, it's slick, and cover some subjects for JXB. Let me just start with a disclaimer. So what works for me and what I'm doing is not necessarily what will work for you and what you should do. You need to take into account your own personal circumstances. Okay? This is just what I'm doing and how I'm doing it, not what you should do and how you should do it. First off. So let's take into account right now where I'm at. It's cold. It's not terrible cold. It's cold though. It's 28 Fahrenheit, so it's a little under zero. Everything's slippery and frozen. So let's look at, say, your USDA growing zone. I'm in a zone 6. Now I don't know where Jay is at. Jay, he or she, Jay could be in a zone 3, which is much colder, harsher, or Jay could be in a zone 10, which is really nice and warm and cozy, or even hot, maybe extremely hot, particularly in the summertime. So that's some things you need to take into account right off the bat for raising your birds in the wintertime. I'm in a zone 6. So one of the things I take into account and which you should look at is probably number one, I would say, is the breed or variety of bird you're going to raise. The warmer areas will let you get away with pretty much almost any bird. There's going to be plenty comfortable wherever, except maybe if you're in a zone 10, some of those larger meat birds might struggle with the heat. But so in which case you're gonna have to worry about keeping them cool. But wintertime should not be a problem at all. The area I'm in, I personally don't raise leghorns. I've tried them in the past. They just don't like the winters here. There's some other more tropical breeds out there too. They're just not going to enjoy the winter as well, or put up with it as well. So what I would suggest for birds is, if you're going to want to raise egg layers, to look at the mixed breeds or dual purpose breed. Not mixed breed, they'd be dual purpose breeds. There's quite a few of them out there. that'll lay well. They'll lay 300 plus eggs a year. And look at them, because those dual purpose birds are going to have a little more weight on them, a little more fat, thicker feather plumage, that is going to let them put up with blowing wind like I got right now. I got drifts coming across the road in front of me. They'll put up with that. So this breed is really something you need to look at. A variety of bird, not breed, I guess. So variety of your birds. Then that takes you to your next most important thing, and it's essential with chickens. Everybody loves to eat chicken, including, in my case, we've got hawks and foxes and coyotes and badgers, raccoons and skunks, all within, every year I have a problem with some other kind of critter where I'm at. So shelter is essential. Shelter for your birds is essential, not only to protect them from the wind and weather, wet, snow, rain, that the birds need to be protected from the elements, but also to protect them from those predators, because wintertime, everybody's struggling. Okay, I lost my train of thought. Phone rang. Where was I? I was talking about shelter. So shelter is important. Not only to protect your birds from the elements, but from all the predators. Wintertime is difficult for all the animals. There's not enough food, there's not enough heat, there's not enough fat. So a lot of the predators get more desperate and are more aggressive towards getting your chickens, because there's less mice and squirrels and whatever quail out to be found. Everything's kind of huddled up, and so the predators still need to eat, and so they'll get a little more aggressive. So you definitely need to make sure you have a good solid shelter around your birds. This is something I've struggled with. So shelter, which now I guess that takes us to heat, particularly with small birds. So young birds have difficulty keeping warm. Very little birds. I like to run my chicks in the springtime, in the wintertime. I like to run them in the wintertime because when you get chicks, it takes 6 months before they lay eggs. Now chickens typically, their laying drops off quite a bit in the wintertime. There's less daylight, and so in the wintertime they won't really lay until spring. So if you get birds in the fall, this lets you have that 6 month window. For me, it's like 6 months of winter, but you have a 6 months window when they wouldn't be laying anyways, and they're growing up to a mature size. So I like to run them, get them in the fall, raise them up through the winter, and then by time spring comes, when they'd actually normally be laying, they're mature and ready to lay. So I'll have good laying birds, and I'm not wasting that summertime waiting for birds to mature, which won't be able to lay. And by the time they're mature, it's cold and they don't want to lay because winter's come. So I start them in the fall. So after that ramble, let me get back to heat. So heat. Those young birds are going to need some way to stay warm. The shelter is very important, but I would suggest getting some sort of inexpensive heat lamp. And keep in mind fire hazards, so you don't burn your chicken coop down, which happens. But get yourself an inexpensive heat lamp and keep those little guys warm until they get a little bit heavier and get some good plumage on them. Then you can cool the lamp. I'm still running on my birds, and they've got feathers, but it's really cold here. So heat lamp. Then that takes you to water. In the wintertime here, everything freezes. Solid. Dog's bowl, the chicken's water, the hog's water, whatever critters you got, all their water is going to freeze. And you go out there and break that water up. Most of the chicken waterers aren't really easy to break up the ice out of. They do sell chicken water heaters, but those dudes run like $50. So I'm not saying don't get one if you can afford it and it's cost effective for you to do it. Get one of those little heaters that the chicken water will sit on top of, and you can keep their water clear with that. I'm a little more of a cheapskate, so I've been accused of, and so I use an extra dog bowl heater. So I've got dog bowls with heaters here, and heating elements that keep the water from freezing. And you can get those anywhere from $20 to $50. They'll pretty spendy, but yeah, you can get one for about $20, and that'll solve a lot of your problems. Doesn't work when the chicks are little tiny because they're too short to reach over the edge of the water bowl, but when they get tall enough, they something like that works just fine. Just keep in mind that chickens like to scratch, and they'll throw dirt in that water bowl if you're not diligent. So water bowl, keeping that water clear of ice. Now that brings us to the final thing, which is food. So in the wintertime, again, the animals, or the little birds, and all animals are burning more calories to stay warm. And it's necessary to have a good food source. I would suggest, if it's cost effective for you, buy the higher protein foods. This will allow those birds to get a little more protein. Most of those high protein foods for your chickens and dogs and cats and whatever they get their protein from fat sources, from tallow, and fat is super important. So yeah, those will have a little more fat that they need to get them through the winter, a little more protein, and that'll help them get through the winter. If you don't, which I don't necessarily buy the higher protein food for my birds, I like to buy in bulk when I can. So a lot of times it'll be the scratch, or if you want some of the grains, will be a little less expensive, and their protein isn't as high and their fats aren't as high in those. So keep that in mind. So what I do with that is I will give them some fats from the kitchen. I will give them a slab of like a tablespoon of margarine. Well, right now I've got the 11 little birds, and so a tablespoon of margarine every other day in their food will give them a lot of fats, help them get through the winter. Their feathers will look pretty good too. They'll be shiny birds. Or a dab of butter, say a tablespoon worth of butter for your little birds every other day. If you cook fatty foods, say hamburger meat or sausages or bacon, there's that fat that runs off. Pour that in a bowl with some of their feeds, and let it kind of set up in there. You'll harden, and you'll have a clump of greasy food that you can give them. And again, they're getting those fats they need that they wouldn't normally get, because they're not able to get bugs this time of year, or little grubs. And if you're thinking, well, I don't want to give my chickens bacon fat, remember, chickens are omnivores. I cracked up the first time I saw a chicken eat a mouse. I had chickens chasing a little mouse around that had got into the chicken coop years ago, and I had no idea, and they gobbled that mouse right up. So chickens are omnivores. They don't mind a little meat and fat. And the last thing I would suggest, and I would say this is an essential, is your kitchen scraps. You want to maybe keep like a compost bucket in the kitchen that you can throw scraps in. You know, when you peel a carrot or have some dinner leftovers, lettuce and salad, I would suggest saving that in the kitchen to take out to them in the morning and give that to them every day, and they will get a few more nutrients like lettuce, the greens. They'll get their beta carotenes and things like that they're not normally going to be getting from just, or they won't be getting as much from their regular food as they will with that addition. So I think that's about everything I can suggest for keeping your chickens in the winter. I hope this was helpful to you. JXP, and thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.